What is up? What is up? What is up, ladies and gentlemen? This is Robert Graves bringing you another episode of Year of the Vet. For those of you tuning in for the first time, thank you so much and welcome. You are in for a treat. Thank you for taking the time to take the opportunity to listen to myself and another vet kind of go at it about transition, and just thanks for giving us the time and the space in your daily grind to try something new out. For those of you who are returning listeners, thank you, because without you, Year of the Vet would not have exploded the way it has, and I appreciate you guys telling other people about Year of the Vet and sharing your experiences and engaging on Facebook, Twitter, and then engaging with me via email and in public. So thank you guys for keeping Year of the Vet going. Let's get some business out of the way right before we get into the conversation. Year of the Vet can be found on most social media platforms that I understand, being Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. The reason I'm not on the other ones is because time is a bitch, and sometimes it's harder to figure out stuff like how to get this on Reddit and seen. So if you guys have ideas or can drop some knowledge that I don't know about to help me reach out to different platforms or more veterans that are in other areas, I am open to suggestions. Just shoot me a line via Facebook or an email. So to get a hold of me, that's Year the Vet on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Snapchat, the same thing, Year the Vet. You can get a hold of me at www.yearthevet.com, and there's a contacts box there. Or just email me at vet@yearofthevet.com. And let's connect and let's make some things happen. So last bout of business is that what I just mentioned, yearthevet.com, is up and popping. I've started to send subscription emails out to those who've subscribed to the show. So if you'd like to subscribe to the show and find out what's going on this week and next week, shoot on over to Year the Vet. A pop-up should come up asking if you'd like to subscribe to Year the Vet, and just type in your email and you'll start to get notifications like the rest of them. All right, that's enough business. So this week is a treat for me, and although this conversation was recorded last year in 2017, it still holds true for the test of time for any generation of veteran, and I'm glad to have finally gotten it edited and put out to you for your audio consumption, but more realistically for the soul, because this conversation we talk a lot about identity, and I mean Manny Garcia, my buddy, my brother, Marine veteran, also past president of Sigma Tau Alpha veteran fraternity that has been founded at California State Northridge, that we share brotherhood with. And I love this guy in the most non-erotic way, as much as a Marine can love another Marine who he has not served with. But this guy is just a super duper guy that, to me, has so much more to give to the population around him than he's already been given. And that's saying a lot, because this guy is the Student Administration Support Assistant at the VRC, the Veterans Resource Center at California State Northridge, but also he's created the Veterans Week 5K fun run that supports the Soldiers Project. He helps establish community service projects that help the community around us, whether it be the veteran community or the community of Northridge, California. He and I were awarded the President's Volunteer Service Award last year for our efforts in helping the community around, and that is President of the United States of America. And I mean, the guy he's available for veterans to help them through their educational goals. He helps with student orientation. He facilitates professional dinners to help veterans looking for their next career choice to network with veterans that are already there. I mean, this guy has legitimately had his hands in the development of hundreds to maybe thousands of veterans' lives that are moving on to the next phase of their lives. And he would never say that, because Manny is a super humble dude that likes to keep to himself. And you're going to find that out about him in this conversation that we have. Now, when I say that we have this conversation about identity, I think that on the website you'll have a before and after picture, because before I mentioned he looks like Wolverine. He looks just like this big badass, and he's this big badass. But there's a process that a lot of veterans go through that I wrote about, and that's growing that beard, growing that freedom beard, and really establishing yourself as an individual who has separated from the military. And then there's a day that you get rid of that beard, and you realize that that beard has been a source of identity for you, and you have now become somebody else after completely shaving it off. And it's a real weird situation that you really can't understand until you've gone through it yourself. But we really dive into that from both his perspective and my perspective, because I've gone through the same similar situation. So I'm really excited for you to listen to this, because it really gets into some of the struggles that veterans find themselves in today, such as identity, but then also looking for freedom through extracurricular activities such as drugs or alcohol, working out, reading, whatever your method of release is. We talk about that from both our perspectives, and it really just is a conversation between two friends that are finally like really getting to know each other, which is funny to say because I learned some things that I had no idea about in this conversation. It's some basic shit. So last but not least, Manny refers to the podcast that I had with Jimmy Guevara and myself, and you can find that episode on you'rethevet.com. You can find it on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, whatever is out there that you listen to. So if you get lost in conversation in the beginning, go ahead and take a listen to the conversation that Jimmy and I have together, and some of the beginning conversation will make more sense. There's some shout outs to people who have really made a difference in Manny's life, whether it be getting him into the Marine Corps or helping him through his. So to find out who those shout outs to, once again, shoot on over to you'rethevet.com and look at the show notes for what we talk about, where we talk about it. And then, but I recommend you start from the beginning and just make your way through, because it's a good conversation. I want to thank Manny again for giving me the time and the opportunity to sit down with him and kind of pick his brain about some of the things that I've been curious about, and really opening up, because this was the first time that I felt Manny generally vulnerable to another person outside of his close-knit group about his transition. So thanks again, Manny. With that being said, let's get right into this conversation with Manny Garcia.
Test.
Go ahead, test.
Test. Are we good?
I think we're good.
We up and running?
Up and running.
Nice.
So you've already heard one of these.
I have. I heard the last three.
What?
Yeah, the last three. So
That's
the one
impressive.
before Jimmy's 2-part series, and then MVP.
And my best friend.
Yes, and your best
friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want to sing me a song today, do you?
No, I'm good.
So, I mean, that means you know the format. Like, it's who's pre-Marine Manny, like the whole...
Yeah.
Whatever
Pre-me,
yeah.
Marine me, transition me.
Transition me. So, you look comfortable. So, I guess I'll just kick it off. So, I'm going to introduce my buddy, like my fresh-faced buddy, and that'll be a topic that we get into.
Okay.
Because... I have something similar. When for my last anniversary, I shaved my face off, and I was like, "Oh, I get it." So
you can get it.
Manny Garcia. Manny is a Marine Corps veteran. He is. I said it earlier on Facebook. VRC legend. Past president of veteran fraternity Sigma Tau Alpha. But Manny has a mystery side to him that I really don't know a lot about Manny, and so it's going to be interesting on this conversation to see what I can pull out and where we can go, and right off the bat, I'll cut this out.
Sir,
is there anywhere I shouldn't be going?
Where is that? It depends where you were going to take that. Where you shouldn't be going. And I'm pretty sure I'll just say no. I prefer not to talk about that.
No butt stuff.
No butt stuff. I don't know. I was intoxicated. I do not recall the events that occurred that night, on that day, nor that time.
1, 2. No, I don't think we'll get into any of that. But I know that we talked, last week, a week before that, and it was just about that mindset of, I think I want to go back in, and I want to explore that, because I don't think a lot of people talk about that. I don't think a lot of people actually get into what that feels like, or the feelings before that moment of signing the papers. I just have a friend who re-upped, and it was her first week back after she had been in the real estate business for a few years. So, people have those feelings, and you're having those feelings. So, welcome, Manny.
Pleasure being here.
So, let's kick it off. Who was pre-Marine Corps Manny?
Pre-Marine Corps Manny. So, I grew up in Pasadena, California. The great area code is 626 in the San Gabriel Valley. I would say that my upbringing, compared to Jimmy's, was very privileged. I went through Catholic school for a good portion of my life. Well, both elementary, middle school, and high school.
Boys only?
No, up until high school, that was Don Bosco Tech, so it was all boys school, technical, high school / junior college at the time. So yeah.
I didn't know you went to... So, up until high school, you were at all boys school?
Elementary, middle school were co-ed, and then high school was all boys.
What was that like?
It's just the same as going to any high school, only there's more testosterone, more fights, more aggravation. We did mingle with our sister sister schools, which was for us Alverno, Ramona, Mayfield, and Sacred Heart.
Yeah. So. Was there extra pressure to be something since you're at all boys school, right?
Of course, you always have to perceive yourself as something that you're not.
Yeah.
Even in the Marine Corps, I would say that's a direct reflection of that.
What were you not?
In high school,
Yeah.
I was very timid.
Yeah.
I was just a chill guy, minding my own business. Only had 5 real close friends.
Yeah.
My best friend at the time had he knew half our class, and I barely knew maybe a third, if that.
Well, you're still similar.
Yeah, still similar in that aspect. I've always kept a close circle of friends. I don't like to be that person that likes to have a big group of friends, associates, acquaintances.
Yeah.
Because then it just all becomes diluted, and I don't know where people stand on what grounds.
Yeah, exactly. What years did you go to high school? That was 96 to 90 or 2000?
I graduated in 2006.
Oh, shit.
So in May of 2006, I graduated, and then went to boot camp June of 2006.
So what was that mindset? Because we're already at a state of war, right? We're already in it.
So like Jimmy talked about during his podcast, the real big thing was Fallujah.
Yeah.
That was the second invasion of Fallujah was really going on during that time. So my mindset, I knew about the military, but I wasn't really aware what they were capable of. I didn't know what the Marines were really capable of. My friend at the time, John Bowie, who I hate until this day because he's a staff sergeant, he's still in the reserves. I'm just gonna, shout him out.
I hate you, John.
He knows that I hate him every day. He told me literally right after we got our diplomas. He said, "Hey, I'm gonna join the Marine Corps." I'm like, "Okay, cool, man. Good for you." I think I'm gonna do the college thing or do something with my life. And he somehow convinced me. He's like, "No, you're gonna come along with me. We're gonna talk to a recruiter." I'm like, "Okay, sure, I'll go with you." A week after, I guess, our graduation, we walked over there. We ended up talking with the recruiter. He's like, "Hey, what do you want to do with your life? Do you want to do something technical? Just general conversation." I told him I didn't know what I wanted. He just threw some MOSs at me. And the first MOS was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll be an aviation tech."
Yeah.
So that was a 6324, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Aviation technician, communications, navigations, and weapons technician, something like that.
Yeah.
And sure, I signed the papers within 3 days of those, and shipped off right after my 18th birthday.
Really?
So I had to get my parents to sign. So that was a different conversation on its own. Of course, being Mexican, growing up in a Mexican family, there was a lot of yelling involved during all that. A lot of disownership from my mother.
Dad was proud?
Dad was like, none of my business. I'm just here. I'm just here on the sidelines
listening to popcorn.
Grabbing the popcorn, enjoying the conversation, having his good laugh, while my mom's face turned red.
Yeah. From
all the yelling. But brought the recruiter over. Yeah. They convinced him. They signed the paperwork, and off I was.
Now, had you like said, you know what, fuck you, John. Like, I'm going.
Yeah.
Where do you think that you would have kind of found yourself
walking?
So
there were a series of events that led me to finally joining the Marine Corps. Prior to this, that last step was pretty much I was in the fog of it. I don't know where I'm gonna end up, but this seems like a good idea. At the time. So prior to all this, our senior year, we had a 5th year program. So if you stayed at our high school for an additional year, you would get an associate's degree. Mm-hmm. And from that associate's degree, you could just go through a 4-year institution, get your bachelor's, and you'd be done.
Yeah.
So they disbanded the 5th year program within the first semester of because we worked off semesters. We didn't work off quarters.
Yeah.
So our first semester, going to winter break, they disbanded the 5th year program. So of course, our senior class got together. We rallied, but the administration there was no money to fund it. Mm-hmm. So they got rid of it, and people chose different careers that were relying on that 5th year program.
Mm. So that's the JC part of the high school.
Yeah.
That's a weird setup.
It was a weird setup.
I guess it works though.
So the actual high school itself was just like any normal high school.
Yeah.
Freshman through senior year. And all you would do your senior year would tack on college credits and then just stay that 5th year to finish your associate's degree. And we were technical colleges, so we had 5 programs at the time, which was power and transportation, worked on cars.
Yeah.
Construction, which was my specialty. Computer science, material technology, electrical technology, and that's it.
Sounds like a sweatshop for pushing out workers.
I mean, yeah. But a lot
besides IT, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, IT. We also had a design department, so kids would be hired or intern at these firms doing architectural work. Work on Cat 5. Yeah.
So you got this fancy job, right? Nerd of the Marine Corps. That's what the recruiter.
Yeah. So he sold me on this aviation technician. Let's do this. Did the boot camp thing, came back home, then shipped off for 1.5 years of technical training
in Pensacola, Florida.
Oh yeah, Pensacola, Florida. Good old.
How dare you?
NJP capital of the world.
I bet, man. We were all told we'd go to Pensacola, and then we ended up in 21 Palms. So, yeah, fuck you guys.
Yep.
Like, we didn't actually think people went there. It's just one of those things they tell you do, and then
the
you
mystical
end up
creatures
in 29 Palms. Yeah. So that must have been wild.
Yeah.
18 years old, Pensacola, Florida. Like, spring break was just around the corner.
Oh, I didn't get to enjoy spring break. 2006, but I got to enjoy spring break 2007.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too bad I missed out on that. Anyway, so how did you get into Intel?
So, did all my technical training, came back to my unit, which was HMLA 775, which was a reserve unit and training unit at the time. They got decommissioned literally, I think, within 4 months or 5 months that I got there. And the career counselor was hooking up everyone within the unit who wanted a lat move or find other jobs or find other units.
What?
So my buddy had just literally told me 3 weeks prior to this that they were setting up to deployment to Iraq for 2009. So this was beginning of 2008.
Yeah.
So he told me about that. I'm like, okay, sure. 223 reserve unit in Pasadena, transferred over, signed the paperwork to lat move, met the future crew that I would be working with, And 3 months after I checked in, I think I checked in June of 2000. No, it wasn't June. It was earlier than that.
So you came back here to Pasadena to reserve unit?
Mm-hmm.
How long did you stay here?
I stayed there for the rest of my career.
You were...
Yeah, I stayed at 223 for the rest of my career.
Which was how long?
I got out in January of 2015.
So you left Pasadena and you went to Florida, and then you're like, I'll go back to Pasadena.
Yeah.
I mean, completely on accident, but I mean, that must have been cool to your mom, who was already cussing you out for going. But like, you're back home for the majority of your time. You're back home for the majority of that time. You're active duty, right?
Oh, let's scratch that. I wasn't. I was a reservist.
Oh, the whole time?
The whole time. Let's scratch that. I got to enjoy.
See? I'm just getting all this time.
All this time.
Okay, so what were you doing on the off time?
I was trying to go to college.
Yeah.
But in between all that, I was still going to school. I'm dumb.
Good thing you didn't go to college right away.
Yeah, good thing I didn't go to college right away. No, I was working. I did odd jobs. I did, worked at Gold's Gym, worked at elderly care.
Yeah.
What else did I do? Just odd jobs here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing long term.
Nothing long term. So Lap moved, came back home, changed over to Intel. So that was June. We were mobilized, I think November of 2008. We started all our pre-deployment training, and we deployed at the end of March of 2009.
Yeah.
So during that period, I was mobilized on active duty orders. Went to Iraq, came back. So that was at the end of August, beginning of September.
You said you got out in 2015.
Mm-hmm. And then during that period, I was doing college. I was doing odd jobs in there, but I deployed 2 other times.
Yeah. After
that, in 11 and 13.
Yeah. So the transition portion came pretty easy.
I thought that would be the case.
Good.
I thought that would be the case. Even though I'm a reservist, I did put myself in that mentality, that lifestyle, that worry ethos.
Yeah.
I lived and breathed it for... Even though I was a reservist, I lived and breathed it for almost 9 years.
You were doing more than your required time?
Yeah, so I did a lot of TAD.
Yeah.
Temporary active duty, and for whatever...
Yeah, you went TAD.
Whatever time they needed me for. And most of it was clerical work, security clearances, ISO preps. So for people that got lost and have to get picked up again and re-identified, did a lot of those packages. And assisted in a lot of secondary contingency planning for the battalion.
Now, okay, reservist mentality, warrior ethos, and you're in Pasadena. Mm-hmm. How are you balancing playing both sides? Like, are you automatically at this point, right, through boot camp, through 2 MOS trainings at this point, right? Mm-hmm. Now you're out around doing the odd jobs. Are you in these odd jobs with Marine mentality, or are you able to turn that light switch on and off?
No, I think it's always, once it was instilled in me, it's always been there. And this past year I tried to move away from that and try to create my own identity.
Yeah.
But during that 9-year span, I knew, like they say, I married the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't marry it full time, I married it part time, but that came first.
Yeah.
And a lot of people close to me at the time resented me for it because I would always put that first on top of everyone else.
Yep.
Because it was just easy. It's easy to understand. You do your job, you do it well, you earn the respect of others, and as long as you have that in your integrity and your first class PFT, you're golden.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so revisiting the mindset, right? Like, nobody can see you, but when I brought up transition, your face was like, it was like that lit up, questionable, like, maybe not so much, right? Mm-hmm. what was it about deciding, okay, even before that, why did you decide to get out?
There were a couple personal factors in there, but for the most part, I had just gotten promoted. There was no staff billeting for me, so I got promoted to E6, Staff Sergeant. There was no staff billeting for me, so I had the option of going to 2 other units, which was, I believe, an intelligence support battalion down in San Diego, or 3rd not 3rd.
Right here in
Anglico Company in Bell,
okay,
California.
I didn't realize there were so many reservist stations around.
Mm-hmm.
No clue.
Yeah, so I wasn't really sure that I was up to recreate my reputation in Union Command, and I was contemplating college, and I had put down the back burner for so long that I was, I'm just going to do this full time and see where it takes me, because I don't want to be, 36 in class with 18 to 24-year-olds discussing the philosophies of life, and they're worried about, catching all the Pokemon.
Believe me, that's an accurate statement. Being a 35-year-old doing the same thing, catching all the Pokemon. So, okay, you made the decision, and what was the first step, right? What was the first step of just saying, okay, it's done? Like, what is that feeling? What is that moment of it's time to walk away? And I'll tell you why I asked that, because I didn't have the opportunity. So I don't know the mindset of, I'm done, right? Mm-hmm. I was forced out. I was pushed out. So that's why I approached this. At what point were you like, the light switch went on, and I just knew at that moment that tomorrow's the start of my last day of the Marine Corps?
I would describe it as breaking up.
Okay.
So you go through a breakup.
Yeah.
I mean, you've gone through a divorce. It's similar like that. You love it. You hate it.
Yeah.
You hate yourself a lot.
Yeah.
Because you're leaving, at least for the time that I was there, and for the people that I at least try to mentor, I'm done, guys. I need to step away. I need to start doing my own thing. I've taken you as far as I could. Best of luck.
So how was it for you? The day after you get your DD-214, what's that like?
Well, I haven't gotten my DD-214. It's still in the mail somewhere.
Hey, Mr. Postman.
That's the thing about the reserves is that every time you get mobilized, you do get a DD-214. So I have a couple of those for every time that I got mobilized. Oh. But my final one, because I fell off orders, was of July 24th of this year. So I'm assuming Headquarters Marine Corps is working on that paperwork.
Hint.
Waiting for my certificate.
I know you're listening.
And my DD-214. But literally, I checked out, and because I would see the guys once a month. I stayed in contact for at least a good 6 months after that. But it's awkward.
Yeah. Well, how'd you prep for it? What was the prep? I guess that's where I'm getting at. How'd you prep to walk away from that life?
It's either now or never.
Yeah.
It was one of those steps where, everyone sees themselves at 9 years, at least you would see yourself doing it for 20.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to decide, do I want to do this for another 11 years and retire, or do I want to do something, not more, but do something different where I could possibly come back to it later as an officer.
Mm-hmm. You had that mentality then?
Yes.
Because I know you have that mentality now.
Yes, and the reason I have that mentality is because my boy John enlisted for a platoon leader's course, or the platoon leader's option in his contract. So he was going to do the 6 weeks at the end of his sophomore year and the 6 weeks at the end of his junior year, and then would be commissioned at the time he would receive his bachelor's.
I did not know that was a thing.
That is a thing.
I did not know that.
I'm assuming that option is still out there.
Well, I'm going to check. Now you know that.
Yeah. So he had that mentality. He's doing what he's doing best right now. He's being a teacher But yes, he stuck that little post-it on the back of my head.
Yeah.
Where I said, I might want to come back a couple years later and do this differently.
Yeah.
On the other side.
It's 2 years later, right? And in that 2 years, I've known you half the time. Mm-hmm. And so when I meet you, you've already got kind of a leadership role. Mm-hmm. So how'd you get back into the circle of being a leader?
So I don't know how that happened. So I transferred in spring 15. Mm-hmm. So the same year I got out, I transferred to Northridge. And that first semester I was just feeling out the campus environment, feeling out the veterans on campus, see what they were up to. I had been a secretary at the Veterans Club in Pasadena prior to that, but it wasn't as involved as we are on our campus. Mm-hmm. Not to say that they're not doing their own thing. What they're doing right now is a lot better. But compared to when I left, it has grown exponentially. Yeah. So during that time, I was still feeling where I belonged. I don't know where I belonged. So that transition phase, and I'm still going through it right now. I think as a leader, you should be constantly growing and never say that you're fulfilled. Yeah. That this is it. This is the pinnacle of my experience, my excellence. I am where I should be. Yeah. So since then, I met the fraternity, and I don't know. They crowd me up. I wasn't really looking for a leadership position. I was just trying to do my own thing on my own time, trying to be involved on campus in some way, shape, or form. And I think they just someone saw something in me because I wasn't seeing it for myself. Yeah, because I'm still discovering who I am.
Yeah. So that goes back to that word identity, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you brought up the word identity. So there was a day when I was working at the radar shop when I got out of the Marine Corps that my boss at the time told me, "Hey, man, you're not a Marine anymore," and it took me 6 years to realize that was the moment that I let somebody take my identity from me, right? Yeah. Like at the time, my identity was a Marine. I was a Marine, or like I don't know how that plays out in my head. Like I had Marine Corps like mentality, therefore I was a Marine, therefore that was my identity. But it was just who I was. I don't know how he approached that. Like, hey, you're not a Marine anymore, aren't I? Anyway, long story short. That was my like the one thing that like fucked me up for 6 years, right? And it sounds like you're trying to figure out what that identity is. So what have you been going through when it comes to identity?
Well, I think when I first got to CSUN, I just turned that off. Yeah. I didn't consider myself a Marine at all. I just considered myself a student. And even a lot of people, if you would talk to them, a lot of acquaintances, as I would call them, because they're wouldn't even know that I was a Marine unless I stated it. Mm-hmm. So I really shut that part off. And when I guess where I was questioned with my identity came up during an interview for a program that I wanted to apply for, and during the interview process, they asked me what my philosophy of life was, and that like. I blanked out. I don't know what my philosophy of life is. Mm-hmm. And, you regurgitate the three famous words, honor, courage, commitment. Those are my philosophy of life. I didn't state that, but that was the first thing that came to mind. I believe I said something like, never take a step back, only take 2 steps forward. I believe that's what I said. But that was the first time I was ever questioned. Yeah. I don't know what my philosophy of life is. Yeah. So that is what triggered me. So now I'm in disarray because I don't know what my philosophy of life is. Obviously, I didn't get that. I didn't get accepted into that program. Yeah. So now I feel questioned and I feel like a failure.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have a philosophy of life now?
No, because I'm still discovering it.
Good. I think it's normal, right? At this point, I think if you asked Tim Ferris what his philosophy of life was, 6 years ago, it's different than what it is today.
Mm-hmm. Great podcaster, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out.
Shout out to Tim Ferris.
Yep.
I hope you're listening. Anyway,
Tools of Titans.
So is that like on a daily basis? Somebody might come and see you reading books, like history books, specifically like history on war books. Is that something that you dig into to try to help piece together philosophy, maybe? Or what are you looking for when you're reading?
So I don't look for anything specifically, just things that interest me. So lately I've been reading a lot of leadership books. So I've read The Way of the Seal by Mark Devine. I'm currently reading Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I'm reading Tuesdays with Maury. I can't remember the author's name right now. So those first two are leadership books, and ownership, and the other book is more personal. It's answering the meaning of life in a sense from the point of death. Mm-hmm. So Maury is a real person who passed away from ALS. So the author is interviewing him through a series of days on a Tuesday specifically for a couple months, and they discuss certain aspects of life. So they discuss death, family, money, regrets.
Mm-hmm. And what are you getting from it?
Just life skills.
Yeah.
So the first two are more battle rhythm type of leadership, understanding the breakdown of how you should command and control individuals, understanding the commander's intent, being able to communicate the commander's intent efficiently and properly so that anybody can understand it, and that you'll be able to apply that either in your personal life or the business aspect of your life.
Yeah. I guess here's the question, right? And it's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing. Because when people read, they start to pull out what's useful to them, right? And then some people pull out and just let it sit there, and then some people pull out and then incorporate it into their lives. Like, where do you sit on that?
So this will probably would backtrack a little. So going to that transitional phase of officially leaving the Marine Corps, I had been talking to my mentor, which was my captain, now Major Timothy Jones at the time. And, graduate from Georgetown. So we would have conversations of what I would want to do, either A, in the Marine Corps, or B, in the civilian world full time. And I told him my aspirations about, working for the Foreign Service, possibly in the next couple of years, still traveling the world. Not in the policing sense, as the Marine Corps would say, but in the sense of trying to implement change in countries that are struggling. Yeah. And trying to see that and try to fulfill that and, still be useful in some way, shape, or form. So I believe that's what I take out of those books is skills that I'm able to apply, A, in the workplace, B, in my personal life, and C, in my future career.
You do, on the back end, right? You do fill yourself with knowledge and information that great leaders do. That's what they do. They never stop learning, right? So how does it feel to be somebody's leader, have people come in and immediately feel that you are their leader without even having had a one single word with them yet?
I think this goes back to the experience of my last two deployments, because my last two deployments were security corps operations. So in those two deployments, I learned how to be very resourceful with little to no budget, resources, and manpower. At the same time, we were still going through all these different phases of partnerships with different nations and introduce, TTPs and, standard operating procedures. So those were the baselines.
All the baselines is
they were using. So I think I learned those skills through that, and I've applied it over the years, and just simple conversations, just like we're having right now.
Yeah.
Just starting to interact with people. Hey, man, what do you need? Or,
yeah,
woman.
Yeah. Hey, woman, what do you need? So, okay. Kind of washing all that aside, I see how uncomfortable you are. What are some things that we can talk about with student life, right? Mm-hmm. What can we bring from the military into the schoolhouse and succeed from incorporating that?
I think within this last year, I learned that discipline is the writing factor overall. Because we learned that day one, and we take that throughout the rest of our lives. We tend to lose it once we get out, because now we don't have to report to anybody. We're not accountable for anyone.
Yeah.
And we're not accountable for any gear.
Yeah.
So we tend to lose our discipline right after we get out. Some people succeed.
Yeah.
They don't go through that lull and immediately jump into it and get that and ride that wave for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
While others, we lose our identity. We lose that discipline that we've been doing every day. So I would say that is one of the biggest factors that any veteran can take away, is that using that discipline to carry yourself for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So beyond discipline, are there other key factors? Because this is second time around for you, right? Mm-hmm. This is the second college, and you've seen a plethora of people come in and out of it. What are some other key elements that vets integrating into student life should be aware of, and then that should hold right at their hip pocket?
Discipline and routine.
Yeah, that's a good one.
My routine right now, I wake up roughly, depending on how the day goes, anywhere between 5 and 6. And this is just listening through other podcasts, through other outputs, is that, wake up an hour or an hour and a half prior to whatever needs to be done for the day.
Yeah.
Because that time is for you. So during that hour, I'm listening to Tim Ferris, Jocko Willink, Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. I'm listening to those podcasts, even yours. And then I do whatever I need to do, either cook breakfast, meal prep, get everything ready for the day.
Yeah.
So during that hour to hour and a half is for me. Now, once I leave the house, I get to work. Now it's, I turn that switch on.
Yeah.
And try to keep being productive throughout the day. Now I have my own personal benchmarks. So once I get to work, what needs to happen? Do I need to report to the coordinator first? Do I go to the gym first? Usually get there, gym, report to work, knock out whatever needs to be knocked out for the day. End of the day, I like to get reading done now, so that's a new thing that I'm trying to do. It's trying to get some sort of personal reading done throughout the day.
How many books do you go through a week?
Right now I'm at 4. Not a week, but I'm reading 4 books at a time.
Man, you know how long it takes me to read one book? It'll take me a year and a half for one book, because I read the same page 17 times. And I'm like, how do I process this?
And I used to be the exact same way. That was me throughout high school, and I believe that's why I struggled a lot. Is that this information would not sink in.
Yeah.
So I got smart. I read every other. If it's a technical book, something I need to read for class, I read every other paragraph.
Yeah.
Front and back page, just to get the overall picture.
Yeah.
And then find the little intimate details.
Yeah.
For personal reading, I just highlight what I like.
Yeah.
And that's what sticks in my mind.
Is that something that you learned from somebody else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speed reading. I read a book on speed reading, and then friends have told me that technique works. That read the first page, the back page, and then just find the details in between.
What about what's the word? Arlene says it all the time. Spoiler alerts.
Spoiler alerts.
Yeah. What about spoiler alerts, man? You read that last page, like, Lenny dies. You're like, fuck.
Well, not in the personal. In the personal reading, I don't.
Yeah.
But in just
Yeah, I got you.
just textbooks, I do that.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about discipline and routine in your workday, right? You're in a work study. And what a work study is that when veterans come into, is it only for veterans?
So I am not a work study.
Okay. See?
I used to be a work study in Pasadena, so I understand how work study works.
Yeah.
If you want to get into that, but at Northridge, I'm an actual employee, a student employee of the University Student Union.
Okay. So what is work study though? Because veterans can come and they can benefit from that particular process of being in a college.
So first of all, your education site has to be approved through the VA. It's a fairly simple process, and then you get assigned a supervisor. So on our campus right now, our vet affairs is approved for 2 work studies per semester. So out of that, I believe they report to either Vanessa or Noe that signs off their paperwork. So you're allowed your 50-hour cap, so you can work and that's broken up between 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So 25 and 25.
Yeah. Ish.
Yes. And
Okay.
Then I just talked to a work study up in CSU Channel Islands, and apparently the process has gone a lot faster, where once you submit your paperwork, you get your payday within 2 to 3 days. Compared to when I was doing paperwork, it would take a month and a half, and this was almost 3 years ago.
So you were just at Channel Islands. Mm-hmm. You were also just at every veteran resource center on the East Coast.
Yes, so the University Student Union has a new initiative that they want to implement. So they sent a group of students pretty much around the nation to look at multicultural centers. For me specifically, I was looking at veteran resource centers on their campus and what kind of programs they were doing, what kind of services they were providing, and how active was their student veteran base.
Yeah. What'd you find?
I found, well, again, this is more like a cultural and regional thing.
Yeah.
So there's an overwhelming support within the South and the East Coast.
Yeah. What's something down there that you wish we would bring to...
Free education, like the state of Texas.
Yeah.
And found this out. The state of Connecticut will pretty much pay from bachelor's through PhD as long as you stay within the state for, I believe, a couple years.
Oh, to give back.
Give back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good process. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's Connecticut, so they've got like 12 people there.
Hey, 12 people is more than... I'm willing to be one of those 12 people for a full ride.
Did you, right? Got my gears turning.
Yep.
Did you get to go to like Boston?
No, did not get to touch Boston at all.
Any like historical like landmarks? Nothing to geek out on?
Nothing out of the norm, no.
No Tons Tavern?
No Tons Tavern, no.
Alright, fine.
Sorry, didn't make it to Philadelphia.
Damn it. Next year.
I mean,
who's planning these trips?
I mean, I did get to go to National Museum in Quantico during my time in.
Yeah.
So I got to visit.
I'd like to do one of those. That was, I mean, you were over there for about like 2.5, 3 weeks ish. That was a good trip. That's a good trip. Paid for by the school.
Paid for by the school.
See, that's why you need one of those good government jobs. Anyway. So you're back, right? You're back, and there's a new essence about you. And for people who don't know what I'm talking about, I would describe Manny to people as the Wolverine. Like, Manny was just this, I mean, he had this cool fiery red beard, like this Mexican dude, and like you really didn't know what was going on his face because you could never see it. And then one day he and I were talking, and he's like, I'm going to shave it. And he told me he was going to be freshly shaven for this podcast. I was like, no, that's not cool. But there's I think, and let me get this out because this is what I think. I think it's an identity thing where we as vets get so... I mean, my book is called How to Grow a Beard, right? So like that whole mindset of just like growing off the military and just being this person that we feel is like, okay, I'm this rough edge, rugged, whatever we feel like this beard is doing to us. And then one day, like, you clean it off and you're like, oh shit, man, you're looking yourself in the mirror, you're looking dead in your eyes, you're looking at your face, and you're like, okay, it's probably time to let that beard go. Was that similar to how that process happened for you?
So, the last time I shaved was over a year ago, and that was for my buddy's wedding.
Yeah.
And since then, I did not. I grew it out, and I think in doing that and doing the things that I was doing and the events that were happening in my life, I think I identified with my beard and my long hair.
Yeah.
So obviously I was abusing more alcohol than I should. I was hanging around with the people that I shouldn't.
Yeah.
I let some of my grades slip.
Yeah.
And, I think that contributed with me and my lack of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I had one of my buddies pass away within the last month and a half.
Yeah.
In an accident. So that kind of triggered me. And I actually deployed with him to Iraq in 2009. And he had gone from, this young 21-year-old, freshly clean cut, never seen anything outside of his normal world, and now he's in combat zone, and we're doing big boy things.
Yeah. To
see him pass away and become a Marine Corps or a Marine Raider.
Yeah.
So seeing that kind of like hit home, seeing how he had come so far to have his life cut short like that, and so that was the first, when I went to his memorial service, I just had cut my hair. I still had my beard. But I think it was just time.
Yeah.
It was time because I had seen myself become so distant and now I had to bring myself back home. And I think shaving it all off and getting clean cut has helped in that process and put myself in a box.
Yeah.
Because I know if I get outside that box, then I'm just a wild man. I'm going to do what I do best, which is, drink.
Yeah.
Excessively.
Yeah. And I mean, it's literally like when people say, you're taking off the coat or, you're shaving off a protective layer.
It's
right?
true.
And, my moment was my anniversary last year. Arlene hadn't been there. It was a surprise. And so she likes my face, no hair.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, fuck it. Anniversary, cut it all off, clean shaven. And I looked at myself. I was like, it's time to stop hiding behind the beard. I literally said that to myself. I was like, it's time to stop hiding behind the beard. And I think, I kept it off for about 2 months and I started getting more active and, I felt more like myself. And then, I started letting the beard come back and it was what it was. But just that one simple fucking action of releasing that facial hair, man, like, it was weird what it did. Because I didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't like I shaved it off to be a new person or to find my identity. But to do it, to have that action, and then to have those thoughts almost immediately, I know how powerful that was for you to go through that. Because you're a completely different person underneath all that fucking hair, bro. Like, what I mean? So I know it's different for you to look at yourself.
Oh, yeah. Definitely that Monday I shaved it all off. I'm like, who is that person in the mirror? Because I don't recognize that person at all.
Yeah. What was that like?
It felt strange. It felt strange for the first week that I did it. Because every time I would catch a reflection of myself, I'm like, who's that?
Yeah. Ready to fight him?
Yeah.
Get your hand out my pocket.
Yeah.
Get off my back. Yeah, man, I could see that. But how do you feel about it?
I feel better.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still tendencies to do stuff, but I'm trying to be better at that and keep it in check.
How?
Mostly through working out
Mm-hmm.
and reading and finding side projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of those things because the Marine Corps keeps us so busy on so many levels. And once
Yeah.
we get out, we have hands, but we don't know what to do with them.
That's interesting. I've never heard anybody say that. I've never thought about that. Now I'm going to be thinking about that. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's get into, if you're okay with it, the hours before the first drink.
Any drink?
Any drink.
Any drink.
You know what I'm talking about. That first drink. That the hours before, right? Because, I mean, you've already spoke on it. Like, you heavily drink sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
When those days come up, what are those hours like, right? And this is specifically for people who are going through it and can't put a finger on what's going on.
Well, I think I've been asked this past year. I've been asked this question. It's like, why do you drink? And the people that usually ask me typically answer their own question. Is it because, are you trying to escape? Are you trying to reminisce? Are you trying to forget?
What are you running from?
What are you running from? So the answer to their own question, I'm like, and I just automatically agree with them. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I'm doing.
You building a house with all those cans and bottles? Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
Building a house.
I need to make rent because I spent it all, so I got to cash all these cans in.
I'm trying to help the environment.
Yes.
Get rid of bottles and cans.
So the hours prior to any drink, I guess, depends on the stresses of the day. And some days, it could be something minuscule. It doesn't have to be anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's other days where, you reminisce and it hits you hard.
Yeah.
So I don't typically go to drink anywhere. I go to my American Legion
Mm-hmm.
because I can relate to most of the people in there. So at least at my post, a lot of them are Vietnam vets. So I usually drink with them, play darts, play pool.
Mm-hmm.
But hours prior to that, leading up to it, sometimes you just get thirsty. And sometimes people are willing to listen.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're willing to listen to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just those shared experiences. Even though they're different times, you might share similar experiences and they understand.
Yeah.
And they're willing to listen, even though they might be a little intoxicated. Or sometimes you might talk to someone completely sober in there. But they understand your struggles, your demons. And it's not like you're going to go anywhere for the next couple hours because you're going to be there hunkered down.
So, I mean, that's a safety outlet.
It is.
Now, when you're not there, in full disclosure, like my wife, right? She, let's say, so my outlet's not alcohol. My outlet is weed,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's not like I don't have a fucking marijuana card. I'm not going out there. But like, if somebody comes around and they got something and it's been a long week or a long month, Arlene, my wife, likes when I smoke because I become happier.
Yeah.
Like I become this person that I haven't been, that she used to know or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And to the point where she's purchased weed for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I got to that mindset of like, I don't want to be dependent on this to be happy, right? So that's my outlet is how do I find my outlet? I guess like some days if I know it's at the house, I'll just think about like I just want to be happy right now. Like I just want to be like mind turned off and be able to laugh and smile but I can only do it here, right? If I'm out of the house, I have to be with like 4 people I trust.
Yeah.
So when you're not at the Legion, right, or you're not with one of your best friends you served with, and you guys often, meet up. If you're not with him, how do you feel safe in that element?
I don't think I do.
Yeah.
And I think I overdo it sometimes.
Yeah.
So now I'm being... And I think that's where I feel some sort of shame. Like, now I have to have these people that I don't know that well, or I'm still trying to get to know, because I'm also sheltering myself in that way.
Yeah.
And putting them in a position that they shouldn't be in, because they don't know how I am when I'm fully intoxicated.
Yeah. 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 That'll make you take a step back and be like, okay.
So there are times where I do watch myself very consciously.
Yeah.
But there are times where I just, the anxiety takes over, and I just don't want to associate with anybody.
Yeah.
And that ends in a very bad night.
Yeah. Those days are scary for me. Like those moments when I don't feel safe, like full on breakdown. Like I like a meltdown. Full on meltdown, man. Yeah, when I get into conversations with people like outside this podcast, right? And they're going through something similar, I immediately bring that up. Like, hey, I know what it feels like to not feel safe, and to need that outlet. It's an outlet, but you're figuring it out where you're like, there's healthier outlets. And I mean, you look good, man. I'll tell you that right now. What a year's done, right? What is one of those things that you're kind of struggling with is your role out here, right? Back to the identity. What's leading up to your next big decision in life, which is, should I re-enlist?
Okay, so there's that question has been brought up many times throughout this year, and that goes back to the drinking, my philosophy of life. I guess, where do I see myself in the next 20 to 30 years? And putting myself in a box where I understand everything.
Yeah.
So I know friends that are still in. I know friends that are out and doing great things. For myself, I just don't feel fulfilled without doing something more.
Yeah.
And in that essence, answering that question of going back in.
Yeah.
And being in a leadership position where I'm able to take care of a group of men or women and teaching them, whether they're 18 or, either they're going on their first year or they're going on their 20th year. And providing some guidance.
Yeah.
So I saw in the Marine Corps Times that only 4 out of 5 Marines have deployed to combat or some sort of combat operations or contingencies. So there's those things do linger in the back of my mind, and where I can go back in and fit in and provide some sort of guidance, some sort of leadership and mentoring.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, that could only go on for another, let's say you go 30 years, right? So it can only go on for 20 more years, tops. What do you want to do? What's the big picture?
I haven't answered that for myself yet.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to answering my self-identity and shaping myself first. Because I don't think I'm going to go back in if I don't know who I am first.
Yeah.
So even within this past year, I've established a set of values for myself. And I think that's helped me a lot more in identifying the people that I'm going to hang around with and seeing how I can help them and vice versa.
How'd you come up with those values?
Over a beer or two.
They're not honor, courage, commitment.
There are not honor, courage, commitment.
What's your philosophy in life?
Ask me after a beer, and then we'll talk.
Okay. No, that's I think, and you don't need me to tell you this, but I think that's wise, right? Like, you're not gonna go redo the same stuff to come out and start that whole circle of life all over again. Mm-hmm. You're gonna go in with an action plan, with an end goal in sight, and yeah, that makes sense. So for vets who are getting out, or service members getting out right now and about to become vets, I know you didn't go through the
TAPS.
No, well, that I was gonna say, you didn't go through the normal process of.
No, I get I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah. But you do deal with a lot of vets, so you have insight on that question, right? Mm-hmm. For a lot of those guys coming out and struggling with who they are today, or trying to find who they are, what is some guidance that you can give back to those guys?
So I actually learned this from one of the active duty staff sergeants that was attached to us to one of these security cooperation teams, and no one's gonna spoon feed you information. Mm-hmm. You're gonna have to be very resourceful, and I think that's another great skill set that I've taken away from the Marine Corps, is that you got to be resourceful. Yeah. If your leadership is not providing you information, go find the information for yourself. So I think the good action plan for those that are coming out from active duty, even in the reserves, 8 months out, you should have some sort of action plan that you're going to execute for the next year and a half. Yeah. So whether that be find a technical college because you want to pursue technical skills, go to a junior college, or even apply to a 4-year. There's a lot of 4-year institutions that are willing to take on veterans as long as they have their SATs and high school transcripts. Yeah. So you got to go out there. You got to reach out because there's a huge community out there for you. Again, you're going to have to do a lot of the hurdles yourself. Yeah. So have an action plan, and I believe some of your other podcasters on here have said that having a plan prior to getting out will set you up for success. Yeah. Because it's those that don't have a plan that are going to crowd surf for the next 6 months that are really going to be set up for failure, and they're going to be broke. Yeah. Yeah. And then bitching and moaning, and then going to the VA trying to get disability. Yeah. And that's another year and a half out. So what are you going to do? Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I told Arlene the other day, I go, I'm going to start, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have weekend seminars, but they'll only be like half-day seminars, and it's going to be a seminar on resourcefulness. And I'm going to charge $350 for it, a person, and I'll introduce myself. And then right after the introduction, I'm going to say, Google it. Yeah. The end of fucking story. Like, I can't imagine. I can't tell you how many people reach out to me with questions, and then I'll just Google it real quick, and I'll give them an answer. And I'm like, just Google it, man. It's on Google. It's on YouTube. It's in the library. Like, it's literally at your fingertips. Just Google it. I think I can make a killing, bro. $350 for people to come in and say, hey, how do you Google it? Yeah. How do you Google it? How do you fucking Google it, man? Just fucking Google it. I mean, I deal with it every day.
It's crazy.
During the semester, the answers are out there.
They're there. They're all there. Maybe not all. 98% of the answers are out there. Anyway, that's my...
Yeah. The worst thing, what? They say no or you fail.
Yeah, that's my soapbox. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So the last question to wrap it up. Well, 2 more, right?
I had nowhere to be.
It's all good. So, we went over guidance, right? Mm-hmm. What guidance do we give? What would you tell Recruit Garcia right now to prep for this moment today?
To prep for this moment, from where I started day 1 to where I am right now. Yeah. observe everything, admire nothing, and take everything for what it is at face value.
Look at you, philosopher. And he's gonna be like, who the fuck are you? Like, shut up.
And why I say that is because during your time in that is your job. You're living that, breathing that 24/7, 7 days a week. So that should come first. If you have a family, obviously prioritize accordingly while you're in. But that is your job. You are married to your job while you're in. Now, whether you do 4 or you do 20, once you leave, you have to start that process, that action plan, and going forward to finding what you're good at, what you love, and who you cherish in your life.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all wise, and I want to thank you for coming on to You're the Vet, because I know it was in your mind, like, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Like, where's this going to go? Like, what's he going to try to pull out of me? And
yeah,
but I respect you enough, too much to even like play around those lines, right? And really, I wanted you to come on and talk about the whole process of identity, right? Because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look at anybody that's going through, the struggles of the 8-hour day and waiting for those. It really, if you're observant, like you were saying, observe everything. If you're observant, there's individuals around us all the time that we can like walk up to and say, hey man, like, you good? If they don't want to get into it, so be it. But as long as you let them know that, you're there every day. Hey, you good? You good? You good? You good? And sooner or later, they'll come around and say, hey man, thanks for watching out for me, or thanks for checking up on me. Yeah. And a lot of people admire you, and so it was only a matter of time before you got onto here. Yeah. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing your time, and thank you for sharing some of the knowledge that you've
I mean, those
soaked up.
Those leaders, those mentors are out there for you. Yeah. Especially while you're in. I mean, those NCOs, those staff NCOs, those junior officers, senior officers, it's really who you want to attach yourself with. Yeah. Obviously, there's boundaries while you're in, but that doesn't mean you can't probe them for information. Yeah. You can ask those officers. They know what the college struggle is like. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, they did it differently. Yeah. They're doing their service on the back end and you're doing it on the front end. Yeah. But they know the struggle, the grind of midterms and finals. Yeah. And, working things out with their professors. So you can always ask those avenues to your officers. Yeah. And even some of your senior enlisted also, who have gone to college and are doing both at the same time. Yeah. Either whether they're doing online or going to their local JC, or they're going to the college on base. Yeah. They might understand that struggle as well. You just have to reach out. Yeah. Yeah. Closed mouth never gets fed. Yep. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. Yeah. Anyway. I believe that's how that saying goes. Sure. Then you have friends too. You have people that have EAS way before you. Yeah. Reach out. Yeah. Don't be scared to talk to them. And I know, because we like to be alpha males, we like to do everything on our own. And I think that is a bad action plan for anyone to follow, because you're not going to make it alone in this life. Yeah. No matter how hard you try. Yeah. You're always going to rely on others in some way, shape, or form. That's absolutely correct. And that's a testament to even you, right? Because for those listening, Manny doesn't come and Manny is the opposite of me, where I come and I'll talk about my story and to anybody who listens, because that's my avenue of trying to help people, right? But there's 1,000 people out here right now that don't want to get into it, right? So it's okay. It's okay to be in a space full of people that you share a common bond with, but like, you don't have to be military all the time, right? And choose wisely and this is something that you're very good at, and this is something that I do well as well. You choose wisely who you keep close to you, right? Because just because people are veterans doesn't mean that, like,
they have your best interest in mind, right?
Yeah. Or goals.
And so like, it's very, I think that's one of the most important things that somebody can offer is that mentality of you don't have to be friends with everybody, especially just because this is a veteran. This is veteran. You guys go to a baseball game together. Like, no, that's not how that works, right? Really just like keep people in your ladder wall that you trust and that you can really rely on when times get hard, because times do get hard. Not everything's easy. Not everybody has. I think 98% of the people that I've met have struggles on the transition, and only 2% have been like, man, transition's bomb. Like, this shit was easy. I had a job right away. We bought a house, and
and those, they may have surrounded themselves with the right people, or they had the right action plan.
Yeah. It's possible, but it's less likely than it is most likely.
Yeah.
So, but is there anything else that you want to touch on? Some shout outs, some calls to action.
Some calls to action. No, not at this time. I don't have any calls for action. That's not my job nor my priority in life right now. The helm has been passed over to...
Not your seat.
Yeah, not my chair, not my problem. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be involved. It's just, it's not my main focus right now.
Yeah, good, man. Well, again, I appreciate you spending the time, and I think everybody listening appreciates the realness that you brought. So, air high five. No, real high five.
Real high five. If you want to call me out on my bullshit, you know where I work.
Word. All right, y'all.